Hello everybody, Andy here, and today I want to talk to you about a little bit of history, if you will. And by history, I mean it happened like a week ago. So, you know, everything in the past is technically history, so that's what we're talking about. For those of you that follow Ye Olde Kill Team and my channel, you might be aware that about a month ago-ish, Games Workshop posted an advert for a match play games designer. And if you cast your mind even further back, you might be aware that Games Workshop, just before this new edition released, so this is Kill Team 2021, so it would have been in 2021, but before Kill Team released, they put out two job adverts. One was for a rules developer, and one was for a product developer. I applied for all of these positions, and I still have a YouTube channel, so I think that answers that question immediately, don't worry. And I'm not giving up the YouTube channel, so that definitely answers that question. And I thought I'd go ahead and tell you my position on such things, and how far I got in each of these, just so that if you are perhaps thinking of applying either to Games Workshop or a similar company, you might have a little bit of an insight into what goes on. It was very interesting. So I was watching a hobby channel, a painting channel, who apparently applied to be a studio painter for GW. I think it's only like a 2-month-old video at the moment. You probably know him, but you know, go ahead and check Ye Olde YouTube if you want to find that out. Just, you know, Games Workshop painter career, I guess. And it was very interesting. So his experience differed immensely to mine. What he did was he applied and he did a video application, and then he immediately got an interview. However, all of the roles that I applied for were a little bit more in the vein of you have to do a task. And I think that the tasks that we had to do are super interesting. And so I want to kind of show you the tasks that they asked us to do so that you can get an idea of the sort of skills that they might be looking for. But also then, I mean, obviously I failed both of them, so don't do what I did, but I'll show you what I did, because I think that's pretty cool and interesting. So yeah, cool, all right. Well, anyway, hey, you know what it is. Before we dive into it, if you're a subscriber to my channel, I'd like to give you a big double hello. Wow, wasn't that intensely wholesome? If you want some wholesomeness in the next video, you've got to be a subscriber, so subscribe right now. Like, comment, all that good stuff. Hey, you see this little thing right here? That's my Etsy store. I sell objective markers. They're super useful in Kill Team. Please go and buy them. If not mine, you've got to be playing this game with objective markers. If you're not, you're insane, okay? Do you know what? Let me tell you an anecdote. I was at Warhammer Fest, right? It was a GW run event, and they don't use objective markers. They just put down their standard default cardboard ones. And it got to, I think, round 3, and all of the Spanish players came over to me and said, Andy, can we buy your objective markers now? I hadn't brought any with me. I didn't think about it. I was like, oh, sorry guys, I only had one set and I just gave them away for free. But yeah, I'm just saying, if you're good at the game, you use objective markers, and mine are one way you can get them. Also, if you're a Patreon, you can get the digital file for free to print them off in whatever way you want. Just throwing it out there. There are also other benefits to my Patreon. For example, right now, this very second, there is in fact a battle report, fully edited, up for patrons. It will be out on the channel later. Okay, let's get on with it. That was a long one, wasn't it? Okay, so let's do the product developer job first. So I applied for the rules designer job, but I didn't even think I'd get that. And sure enough, I didn't even get a task to do it. So I did, however, get a task that I had to perform for the product developer. What is a product developer? It's a good question. Obviously, it's a little bit tough to know exactly how the innards of GW works, because we all know that they're models first, and we all know that they sometimes get weird things like, for example, novitiates, and I can't imagine that some product developer said, novitiates, their kill teammate give them straight to us. That's insane. So clearly, it must be that the model guys say, okay, make these into a product, right? Like that has to be the way it works. So anyway, so presumably they get given a certain brief, but then they get to make the rest up that isn't just these are your 20 models to make up a box, right? This is all pure speculation, by the way. So I assume it's also like things like Kill Team dice, the TAC Ops cards, the data cards, and the rules that come in all of the boxes of Kill Team. Because of course that would make sense, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it, Governor? Right, anyway, so for the product developer job, keep in mind, I got past the initial sift. For this one, I actually did a video. So I did a video application because I had literally no like reason for them to pick me. I have nothing on my CV that would make you think I could be a product developer, apart from generic like project management skills that any professional would have, really. So anyway, so I got past the sift somehow. Clearly they must have just loved my face, and I got into the task. So the task for this was create a box. Now keep in mind, sorry, this was, cast your minds back, chaps, chapesses and chapai. This was before Kill Team released. Okay, so we at this point we did not have Kill Team 2021. Okay, keep that in mind. So we are still, it was probably just after Pariah Nexus, but it might have been just before Pariah Nexus. I think it was after Pariah Nexus. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and see what I did. So we had a task. Create a box of Kill Team. There you go. Create the next Kill Team box is essentially what it was, or I can't remember the exact wording on the task. I did notice that in case you follow them, they're called the Ossified Mods guy that did like a bunch of Horus Heresy for Kill Team. Also did this, and ages ago now he posted his entry as well, and his was good, and he got to an interview, he said. He didn't give any details about the interview, but anyway, so this is a slideshow that I made up. Obviously I'm not showing you it in actual slideshow format, but I did this. I played around with my, this was my concept, Heretic Rising. You know, I put the old Kill Team logo over the top of some cool artwork I found that was a Grey Knight versus a Chaos. And then I put some delightful orange text on the bottom, really showing off my skills here. Here we go. So it was going to be Heretic Astartes versus Grey Knights. And I kind of put my pitch here. The first in the line of faction terrain focused Kill Team products. This here, look at this Photoshop work. These are just the images cropped out from the GW website and put onto this. Now you might look at that and think that looks like a bit of a weird box to have. Well, that's because you were given constraints. So I think it was you were allowed to have a total of 8 frames of a sprue. What's a frame? Hope you know. Otherwise you're going to mess that up, aren't you? And yeah, so in this concept of trying to get each faction's terrain into the box, the Noctilith Crown here was 2 frames. And then what terrain did they have that was currently on the GW website? I think it was literally just that. So I was like, okay, well, that as well then. Because it has it's generic Imperial, blah, blah, blah. And then some unit frames. We continue on. We go through the concepts. I explain it. I give the narrative behind it. I put some rules, presumably because that's something they told me to do. And then like a vision. So like, hey, going forwards, these are the other things you could do. And that was that. There you go. That wasn't good enough. That didn't get me. Anything. So cool. Anyway, that is the product design job. Or product developer job. So that was cool. Didn't go anywhere after that. But you know what? A lot of people don't even make it past the sift. So hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of, if you do make it past a GW sift, the kind of thing they might ask you to do. You do get asked to do a task. Cool. Okay, with that said, let's go into the presumably slightly more interesting one now because it's just occurred. This is the match play designer or developer, whatever it was. So I got through the sift again. This time I did not do a video interview. I just wrote text. What did I do? So I mentioned, I'm not going to show you my CV or my actual cover letter, but I did mention that I was, you know, a YouTuber, and I did mention, can't remember what else I mentioned. I did mention my channel name, just on the off chance that if they knew me, then they could say, oh, that guy's a casual. Let's not hire him. What are they smoking? No way. So, you know, I was very open about things. And they actually gave 2 tasks for this, which is quite interesting, whereas the last one was just 1 task. So for this, there were 2 tasks. The task 1 was write up under 1,000 words or under a 10-minute video. Like the last tournament you went to and how you performed there and things you learned, okay? I'm not going to read that to you. I did that. But then they also gave a second task, which I thought actually was super fun to do, and I really enjoyed the task because I'm a geek. And that task was create a homunculus coven team. They just said, they gave you the fact that it's called homunculus coven. They said create 4 strat ploys and 4 tac ploys, and they said create a data sheet for these 4 pictures. They just showed you the picture. They didn't say, you know, this is a grotesque, this is a rack, this is a... They just gave you 4 pictures and said create a data sheet for these 4 pictures. You didn't have to do equipment. I think you had to do an ability for the team as well. So there you go. Cool. So let's take a look at that, because it's fun. Oh, no, not here, sorry. Let me shrink myself for you. So, I think I entered this like I had to write this the week after I had gone to the local tournament where I had run Warp Coven, and as you probably know, at the Warp Coven, why did I take Warp Coven? Because I let you guys vote which army I took. Yeah. So I've got to be honest, it was a little bit of a tough one, kind of navigating that as I explained it to them. You know, I played my cards pretty well, I think. I was doing the whole, oh, you know, I'm so good at the game that I can take anything, and I let my people decide. Anyway, task 2, right. So, in creating a team, I threw down just some keywords that I wanted to keep in mind for myself. To clarify, this is my actual submitted document. So perhaps the reason they didn't like this is because they didn't like that I didn't gussy it up a bit. I don't know. I kept it pretty basic. So anyway, yep, so a bunch of keywords that these have nothing to do with anything. This is just me kind of keeping it there for myself. But I felt like if I showed them my working out, they might see that and say, okay, even though I don't like where he ended up, I see why he got there, and therefore this is simply me not liking his interpretation of those rules, but actually he has the interpretation, like he has the reasoning solid. So anyway, just some keywords. For these, I went through Lexicanum and the old Drukhari Codex to just kind of throw down a bunch of words that stood out to me for the Homunculus Coven. Nice, that was my keywords. They were there to just jog my memory as I went through some things. Then I put down the narrative concept, which was, what am I trying to do with this team? Like thematically, forget the mechanics. Thematically, what should this team be? I'm not going to read it, it's boring. Then, just below that, we have the mechanical translation. So now, theme, you know, what are they? They like poisons, cool. Okay, how does that transfer from theme to mechanics? And I then wrote out my thinking on that, kind of put out, you know, there a bit of this, bit of that. Nice. Alrighty. I then did then I'm just into it. Homunculus Coven ability. It's just 2 bullet points. Pained Bliss. Every time a Homunculus Coven operative would lose health, sorry. That was me speaking wrong, not my typo. No typos in here. I double checked. Can you believe it? Every time a Homunculus Coven operative would lose health because of a mortal wound, also increases APL by 1. Every time the second bullet point, every time a Homunculus Coven operative would regain any lost wounds, also increases its APL by 1. Right? So any mortals, basically I just wanted this team to play around with the idea that when you're hurt, you know, it's like flesh crafting. Flesh crafting was honestly the main keyword I took, and how can you translate that into the table. Then they have a bunch of strategic ploys. Yep. And from this part onwards, any time I would make a card or a data card, I actually also added the card in, and like the data card, so that you can see them. But I didn't know if that's what they wanted. Like maybe they legit just wanted a long list of stuff, or maybe they expected me to just straight up photocopy all of their, you know, and show that I can do proper like Illustrator, Photoshop work as well. No idea. Or they just didn't like what I did. I'm not going to read all of the ploys. It's just basically I wanted all of my ploys to be. The team was meant to be a puzzle team where you can either apply mortal wounds or heal them, and typically that will also have an effect on those around you. And the purpose there is that, because of course anytime you regain wounds or take mortals, you get an APL. So the idea is kind of you're meant to hurt yourself to get stronger, right? Cool. Yes. So you do a bunch of stuff. Cool. Strap ploys, yep. In pain life, spasming unlife, flesh sheathed blade, poisoned assault. I'm going for some real GW style names here. Then we get tack ploys. Reforming flesh mounds. That's a redeploy. Unbound growths, oozing toxins, cloned flesh. You see, I'm nailing these. I'm nailing it. Nailing the theme. Then we get to the Homunculus. So Homunculus was one of the guys. The pictures it showed, I chose him to be my leader. Now, you'll notice that they all had the Homunculus Coven ability is Pain Bliss. But then I gave them all artisanal flesh. So I actually reworked the team about 3 times, just so you know. So, but artisanal flesh gives you so much clutter on this data card. I really don't like it. But looking at how all of the other rules place their rules, I could have cleaned up the data card by putting these as part of Pain Bliss, the faction ability, because they all have these. But looking at past conventions, any time you would get a certain effect that are very similar to these, they always go written out as text on the card. Sucks, but that's life. Basically, the whole team has a 5-up invuln. The whole team has -1 damage to a minimum of 3, obviously. And then the whole team also has can't be injured. But instead of being injured, when a Homunculus Coven operative has fewer than half of its wounds remaining, when they fight in combat, in the roll attack dice step of that combat, before rolling their attack dice, they can retain 1 as a successful normal hit without rolling it. So if you've watched all of my videos, you might remember that a while ago I started fangirling about the idea of how cool retained dice are, and I wanted to put that into the team. It could have just been like +1 attack dice, or they all get balanced or ceaseless or something, but like, no, I wanted to put in auto retains because I think they're really cool. Yeah. And then this particular guy, obviously his main thing is he's APL 3, and he can either fleshcraft or Master of Pain. They're both in AP. Fleshcrafting is Homunculus Coven operative visible to, and within 6 of this operative, that operative immediately regains 2d3 lost wounds. Master of Pain, every operative visible to and within 3 of this operative immediately suffers 1 mortal wound. Cool. This is the most powerful heal. Most of them are like more damaging. Now, I guess it's interesting, how did I get to his stat line? Why 12 wounds? why a 5-up save? So firstly, he's got a 5-up invuln, so what his actual save is irrelevant. But interestingly, I wanted to kind of stick close to 40k. However, in 40k, he's actually a 6-up save. Yeah, I don't know. A 6-up save doesn't make any sense in Kill Team. He had the 5-up invuln anyway, but it's like, yeah. There you go. Why 12 wounds? So I played around with the idea of him being more or of being less, but he just didn't feel particularly tough. And especially when you consider, okay, well, what should a rack be? It's kind of like, well, yeah, okay. But also, if you make him any higher than that, considering he's got a damage reduction, and he can never be injured, and there's the potential to heal, you really can't be too high on that. Anyway, let's keep going. You then get the Akathist. The Akathist is the term for a sergeant of a rack, basically. Again, artisanal flesh. Unique actions, remold. This is essentially one operative visible to him within 6 of this guy immediately suffers a mortal. So, you know, again, yes, you take a mortal wound, but you get an APL. So he's kind of like a mini comms, basically. But you take damage to do it. But you're kind of trying to take damage, because as soon as you're half health, you start smashing face. So then, they showed a picture of just a rack, and I went and looked at the rack sprue, and the rack sprue had a bunch of gunners on it. So I was like, okay, well, this team should obviously have gunners. So I then wrote out rules for each of the different guns. So we've got the Stinger pistol, we've got the Ossifactor. I gave the Ossifactor a very cool ability where it has like blast, but only blast if you get the kill, essentially, which is what the Ossifactor does in 40k, or the old edition of Kill Team, I can't remember, where if you get a kill, it gains blast, basically. But I had to word that, have fun with that. Oh, I suppose I should also say why 9 wounds? All Eldaria 8 wounds. Racks are supposed to be very tough, so I gave them 9. Yep. Liquefier guns, just flamer. Yep. But I also wanted there to be a lot of splash and reap on this team, so that was kind of how they were dealing with hordes. Yep. And then just a regular rack warrior that you would get 2 of, again, because I assumed that you're using the whole rack sprue. And then finally, you get the grotesque. So obviously for this guy, I did go 18 wounds. However, he has mindless killing machine, which is the operative cannot be affected directly or indirectly by any friendly strategic ploys or tactical ploys. This operative cannot perform mission actions. So he really is just running kill stuff, which he would obviously be very good at doing, especially since he still has artisanal flesh and pain bliss. Yeah. I imagine that if this ended up in the game, I don't think they'd be happy with ever phrasing it. This operative cannot be affected directly or indirectly. First FAQ would have to define what the term affected indirectly means, right? Yeah. I know. And there you go. That's it. So that wasn't good enough. There you go. That's all I wanted to say. Because I thought, hey, I've done that. That's interesting. Let's show the people what isn't good enough. The caliber of quality the GW demands is above whatever I just showed you. I believe, just off the top of my head, the feedback. So I actually got feedback for the product developer. I have not received feedback, unless I've just got an email. No. I have not received any feedback for this one, the match play developer. The feedback for the product developer was, they just kind of said, oh yeah, he did what we asked, but it wasn't very inspiring. Okay, fair enough, cool. But then if you go and look at the only other person I know who showed what they did, the Ossifactor mods guy, he did a similar thing, so everything was nicely photoshopped up, better than my Photoshop, I'm sure. I'm not claiming to be a Photoshop master, but he had pitched the next edition of Kill Team. As far as I could tell, that was kind of the only difference. I can't really remember what he submitted, but either way, that was good enough to get him an interview. Neither of my submissions were good enough to get me an interview. How do I feel about that, coming into the 25-minute mark where I've just spent 15 solid minutes jerking off myself about my custom rules? Good question. I'm cool with it, yeah. So the rumoured salary for this from people that are more in the know than I am was between 30 and 35k for this position. Don't know about the product developer, only talking about the current match play games developer, rules developer. 30 to 35k, cool. Even if they offered me 30k, I literally wouldn't be able to afford it, so that would be a no. If they were to offer me 35k, I would have a real tough decision, because it would be a really cool challenge, you know, but that'd be quite a cut to my life to go for 35k. Who knows, you know? I think that ultimately I probably would have said no, or more likely I would have asked my current job, can I take a sabbatical for 2 years? Try it, see how I felt after 2 years, if I could continue to live. Because I imagine it's very dead man's shoes over there when it comes to climbing the ladder, right? Like, there's only one Stu Black, right? There's only, you know, there's only X number of people. It's not that big of a team. So if you're looking to advance, tough, probably. I would guess, pure speculation. So ultimately, I'm cool with it. This wasn't like, I applied because it was fun, and that was a really fun task to do, so I'm cool with it. It would have been nice to get the interview, can't lie, you know, especially since I don't really know what they didn't like, because I thought I put forward a really interesting pitch for a team that clearly showed I have a strong grasp of the mechanics of the game. Yeah, maybe they could see that I wasn't a top tier pro player, because I haven't, you know, I'm not top 10 ICT, and everybody else that has applied is top 10 ICT in the UK. I don't know. That'd be a valid reason, I suppose. I shall never know, because they aren't giving feedback. Anyway, there you go. That was interesting for me. And hopefully, if you've watched this far and you're kind of percolating in the back of your mind about things, you know, maybe you want to apply the next time any position at GW comes up. Maybe, hopefully this has helped you kind of realise something for yourself. If I had to give a tip, I would give one, and that is, if you really want to work at GW, there is absolutely no reason in today's economy that you have not published a game yourself. You know, like you can self-publish a game. It doesn't even have to sell any copies, right? Like, you can self-publish a game. It won't really cost you that much, and you can put that on your CV, and you will immediately be a cut above 99% of everybody else that applies. Because everybody else that applies for GW, I imagine, is just kind of like, oh, I like Warhammer, I'll apply, cool, right? So there you go. Yes, if you're serious about game design, you should have a published game. Yeah, that's easy peasy, can do. Or at the very least, you need to have a very strong involvement in a published game if it wasn't entirely yours. That would be my key. I don't know or care about the hobby side of GW. Who knows? It seems that you just need to show them a model, and they say, oh yeah, oh, all right, you're hired. We're only going to show your hands because fuck you, haha. GW's stupid, oh my god, like, they really don't. Hashtag positivity. Hey, you've made it to the end of the video, I'd like to give you a big triple hello. Hashtag wholesome, hashtag polite gang rise up, hashtag stay hydrated, hashtag goodbye.